Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast in a game between FXO's ASD versus TSL's Symbol here on Metropolis. We see ASD spawning as the blue Protoss player at what I'll call the 12 o'clock position. Meanwhile, TSL's Symbol spawning as the teal Zerg here at what I will call the 9 o'clock position. So this will be Zerg versus Protoss, and very interested to see how this game will come into play and what the strategies will actually be. Now, Metropolis, one of those maps that is not currently part of the BattleNet ladder map pool, but still a very common map for those who watch GSL and and keep track of the upcoming tournaments. It looks like we're going to see a Forge Fast Expand coming in from ASD, as he is going to be able to really try to do a wall off here, but he does have to be careful about these destructible rocks. These destructible rocks are exactly that, destructible, so it will make that front door a little bit wider. But then again, it will buy him time to perhaps set up another gateway off here if he wants to complete that wall in. Probe is going to come up the ramp, quickly figure out where his opponent is, and then both players are going to try to establish their strategies and figure out what they're doing in the long run. The key indicator so far is that Symbol has not yet placed down a spawning pool or an extractor, and without a spawning pool or an extractor, ASD feels fairly confident that he most likely can go for a Nexus first. The probe now down to 0 shields, very nicely played, as he's just going to let those shields naturally recharge. The probe now chasing after the drone now chasing after the probe, and the probe may do that dance down below. But what is interesting is that even though Symbol is attempting to place down a hatchery here, he has already placed down his spawning pool. So Symbol is not really falling too far behind. He is going to be able to keep up with his production, and we'll see what's going to happen next, as the drone is just going to hover around here, make sure that pylon perhaps gets completed, as the probe, nope, a new pylon now coming in over here, and as this pylon is done as well. So very interesting that there is a double pylon block both at the main base and at this expansion here. So this is going to be a very difficult time for Symbol to really expand anywhere at all. Let's take a look. There is the Overlord off over here. The probe is still wandering back and forth between these two locations. The pylon has taken some damage. Zerglings now making their way over, as we see one photon cannon already being established. Nexus now coming in. No gateway as of yet, as Symbol is forced to look at ASD expanding well before he does, and there is going to be a very effective wall off here in just a moment. As you can see, a gateway has been placed down, a very narrow choke point there. The photon cannon should be able to destroy much, as we now see a double hatchery expansion coming in from Symbol. So double hatchery expansion, very nicely played by both players so far, and we'll see who's able to deal more damage. ASD now transitioning into double assimilators, and this is a rather unusual tech choice already. Double assimilator normally means that he's trying to get into a very, very high tech choice early on in the game. He's only on 21 probes, so if over a quarter of those probes will be on gas, and that is going to significantly hurt his gas economy, as we now see a gateway is ready. There is a probe in position. He was going to try to do the wall off there. A zealot now needs to be trained, and it will take the place of that probe in just a few seconds. Drones now transferring over to the low ground alongside a queen. The queen is a little bit slow off of creep, but will get there with plenty of time. Meanwhile, over here as well, we should be getting up another queen, as there is, yes, one queen already here. It is now going to make its way down over to this hatchery. A probe now trying to make its way in. The probe is going to walk by that queen, see the hatchery, and know that a triple base is coming in. ASD doing a good job, though, trying to make sure that his opponent is not going to have a free license to drone, and it was most likely going to follow up with a lot more units. Now, we'll see if ASD does try to go for a Stargate, but I don't think that will really work. The Stargate doesn't really work at this point, because the Zerg player will be able to train up queens off of 3 hatcheries, and that is a significant number in order to push back any void rays. Also, we only see one production building so far, one gateway, as it looks as though the Stalker are going to try to shoot down that Overlord. The Overlord may get shot down. and we'll see if it's going to be enough. Already down to 131 hit points as units are still making their way across the map. The Stalker needs a little bit more damage to finish off the Overlord. The Overlord down to 36, 22 hit points, and survives to live and scout another day. We are going into a Stargate by ASD, and now this is going to be the key question. How is Symbol going to respond? At this point, I still don't see an evolution chamber, and I don't see additional queens being trained. So normally that is what Zerg players do. They like to have about almost 2 extra queens to move around freely between these bases, especially since these bases are so far apart. You don't see any creep tumors down. And without any creep tumors down connecting these bases, this is going to be very, very difficult for the queens to actually cover each other. We are now going into a Roach Warren. There's that evolution chamber now, but will it be up in time? There's currently, I believe, 1 Phoenix in the air. Is there 1 Phoenix in the air? Yes, 1 Phoenix in the air. No more Phoenixes being added at this stage. And what is this Phoenix gonna do? The Phoenix could very well, very easily hunt down Overlords and try to destroy them. You can see that there's good Overlord positioning coming in from Symbol. And Symbol now deciding to back away with that 1 unit. A second Phoenix now being added alongside a third. The Stalker now once again making its way over. And ASD does not want to tip his hand with these Phoenixes just quite yet. There is now an Overseer that will be doing a flyby. The Overseer does not have pneumatized carapaces, but it still does have a decent movement speed. It is going to scout that those Phoenixes perhaps, and if it scouts those Phoenixes, Symbol should just, or sorry, ASD should just pretty much move out as the sentries are taking down that Overseer very, very easily. 3 Phoenixes now moving out across the map. We'll see how many drones it is able to take down, but we are already going into a Hydralisk den. We are already getting 6 Spore Crawlers. ASD gonna be in a bit of trouble. He is going after the Queen. The Queen does have 1 armor, so that does definitely help out. As what was a cancellation on that Spore Crawler there, not quite sure why there was a cancellation at all. That Spore Crawler would have been perfect, as now the Phoenixes are just pretty much able to sit there. Zergling's now going to try to test that front door. They will find a fairly large gateway army with a photon cannon there to prevent any more movement, as roaches are now getting picked apart. ASD catching some of these units out of position, 2 graviton beams in order to take down a roach, but now Symbol is starting to spread out those creep tumors. You can see Hydralisks are now making their way out. Hydralisks are now moving around the map. There is 1 Spore Crawler here. We are going into a macro hatch in the center at the 3rd base, so units will be able to rally out very, very quickly as we still see Zerglings continue to move around. We'll see what strategy ASD has to follow this up. ASD is currently behind in Harvesters 61 to 54, also behind in food by about 20. This is going to be interesting and to see how all of this is going to play out, as ASD should be hunting down this Overlord in just a second, and now trying to make his way back around, taking down that 1 very, very easy Zergling, and now perhaps going to finish off this Overlord before moving out across the map. ASD still warping in more and more gateway units. Level 1 weapons upgrade already completed. Groove Spines about to be completed, as well as we are going into Ventral Sacks, and we may have a Doom drop come in. Hydralisks and Roaches very, very effective, and Hydralisks are one of those units that have really become a main staple in the Zerg army as of late, especially against Protoss players who have not yet teched to Colossi. There are Immortals. The Immortals are going to be very effective against the Roaches, but the Hydralisks are very good counter to those Phoenixes. However, with the halt in the production of Phoenixes, those Colossi are going to be able to really deal a lot of damage to those Hydralisks, and Symbol has to be careful that he doesn't over-invest into those Hydralisks. Also, still at this stage, I don't see any Corruptors in the air. No Corruptors in the air, and I do not believe he's actually seen any of those Colossi yet. He really needs those Colossi, or needs to take down those Colossi, in order to really have his ground army deal the necessary damage. Creep tumors are not really spread across the map. That is the one saving grace for Hydralisks. If they're able to run away and do hit and runs, Hydralisks extremely fast on creep. Movement speed very, very high, as we now see Overlords making their way here, but it is going to be completely tipped as ASD going to see a large number of Overlords here. What is going on? Now going to go ahead and try to take down the pylon here, as 1 Hydralisk getting caught out of position gets cleaned up. And now Zerglings making their way over. We see a large Colossus, Stalker, Sentry, Immortal Ball moving across the map, and this is not going to be good, as here we go. ASD catching Symbol out of position, and now in a very nice position here. Perhaps the Stalkers can catch up to many of those Hydralisks. Hydralisks are being forced to retreat once more, as the Overlords are not fast enough to run. Hydralisks are now trying to make their way in. There is Guardian Shield, both sides fighting it out. Force fields being placed down. Roach is trying to get around here, but I believe ASD is just in a superior position. Yeah, going to eat through many more of those Roaches. Once again, the Overlords, this Doom Drop not working. Some Stalkers getting caught in an unfavorable matchup, but still, Symbol taking a lot of damage so far, and now you see 18 Roaches being retrained along with one Hydralisk. We'll see if it will be enough, as ASD currently has the larger standing army. This Nexus off over here is still not completed. We can see Spine Crawlers are going to be placed down over here now, as the Hydralisks are going to have to deal with 3 Colossi, Stalkers, Sentries, and Immortals. Overlords now looking to do some sort of drop. Yes, it is going to be a drop in here, but it is not going to be all too effective. The units are going to try to drop straight in on these group, but it is just Roaches, not Banelings. And now with that, the Colossi are far enough away to really stop much of the attacks there. That was a lot of force fields used though, but it will allow ASD to simply break through those with those Colossi and now make their way forward again. Phoenix is still picking apart more units. The Infestor does not have enough for a fungal growth. Roach is trying to focus in onto the Colossi in the back. The Colossi are really the damage dealers. Infested Terrans now being added, but I believe that is a last-ditch effort, as Symbol most likely will have to give the GG. There it is. So Symbol losing Game 1 in this series. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for Game 2.